Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is Spiritual Context for Worldly Chaos. And we are continuing with my old interviews, my 2023 interviews. And soon we will be going on to Jessica and I's episodes, which you got to hear one on Saturday. So that's extremely exciting. We've been talking a great deal about it. And yeah, it's just going to be a very cool new turn in the direction of this show. But for now, we're going to continue on with these interviews from 2023, and this one is Megan Leatherman. Megan Leatherman is an amazing tarot reader and a true nature lover and communicator, and we talk about purpose in this episode. Throughout the next 5 days, that's what you're going to hear us kind of dive into, both theoretically and through the cards. Before we begin, I just want to wish everyone a happy lunar eclipse that's going to happen on March 3rd. It's also called the blood moon, and that's according to the Farmer's Almanac. So this should be a really exciting event for a lot of us because we will actually be able to see it astronomically. I think, 60% of us are going to be able to see the moon turn blood, orange, reddish. So make sure that you're outside. If you have a clear sky, it's going to be quite a show. But it's also our next full moon. So this is our full moon in Pisces, but it's also a lunar eclipse, a full lunar eclipse. And if you love astrology and you'd like to know more about this lunar eclipse, and if you'd like to know the tarot card for your zodiac for this lunar eclipse, please make sure that you sign up to my Substack and you'll receive what's called This Week in the Sky, where I go over what's happening in the week ahead. And the most significant event is the blood moon lunar eclipse. And then on top of that, Mercury retrograded last week, so that's going to really heighten the effect of this lunar eclipse. So without further ado, let us go on to the first part of Megan Leatherman's 2023 interview, and I will let 2023 me introduce her. I'm dedicating today's episode to the major arcana card, Judgment. And there's a lot of different translations for the card Judgment, but one of the spiritual translations is a higher purpose or a higher calling, something that is telling you to go this way, right? Something that's saying, I'm here as a sign for you to walk towards me. And I think a lot of us look out for things like that, especially when we don't know which way we want to go, or we don't know if our desires or our potential or just our light would actually shine there. So this is going to be a really cool episode. I'm talking to a really wonderful guest who helps people find their higher purpose for a living. And she also incorporates nature into this work. So I'm very excited to introduce her, and let's just go ahead and get started with the episode. Megan Leatherman is a coach, mother, writer, and amateur ecologist interested in how we can do the work that's meant for us in ways that are aligned with the natural world. She's the host of a podcast called A Wild New Work and the author of Winter at Work, Navigate Mystery and Cultivate New Vitality on Your Vocational Journey. She's been working with tarot personally since 2014 and professionally since 2019. You can learn more about her work at awildnewwork.com. Hello, Megan. It's so nice to have you on the show today. I'm really excited to talk to you about all your work.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the icebreaker question, the question I ask everybody to start. How did you come to tarot? What was your journey to this craft?
I have to go back a little bit. I grew up in a pretty conservative Christian home and family, and all things occult or tarot were way off limits. And I had my own sort of spiritual crisis in college. I went to a Christian university and had a sort of awakening, I guess, and just kind of cut myself off from that path. And for the next 7 years after that, just sort of did nothing that felt spiritual because I just was sort of alienated from all of it and didn't even know to explore anything other than organized religion. And after about 7 years, that really dried me out, as it does, to feel like you are nothing but a body or a mind. And so I ended up connecting with this amazing therapist here in Portland. And through our work together, she sort of helped me kind of safely and comfortably explore some other forms of spirituality because I really needed that. And that was in 2014. So that's when I initially kind of introduced myself to tarot and I played around with some decks and just kind of started very small and organically.
What a cool way to come to tarot. It's like you're breaking maybe a feeling like everything is laid out for you or everything is laid out for everybody, whether they know it or not. You're either going to heaven or you're going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of come to a place where you're like, I'd like to experience more than that, or I'd like to feel like I'm connected to more than that there's more out there. Is that kind of the experience you had?
Yeah, definitely. I knew I still needed some connection to something else. I just didn't have words for it or language and didn't feel drawn to any other organized pathway. So yeah, it was a real kind of reclamation of myself as a spiritual person, and it helped me kind of put the pieces back together.
Wow, that's really cool. I mean, I think I know a lot of people who come from, organized religions to this because, like you said, they do need a spiritual connection. And I think it's really important that we recognize that this is a spiritual connection. Tarot is, and all of these forms, Wicca, runes, anything that's even divinatory or just reflective is a way to communicate with yourself. And instead of having something tell you, this is the way it is, it's saying you are an individual and you have your own path, you have your own light, you have your own objectives, your own wants and needs and desires. So that's really special that you were able to come back to yourself, because sometimes I think people really drown in that. They can't, I mean, maybe not as much anymore because we're now at the digital age, where everybody can see each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when before it was, you're really locked into your family, or you locked into your community, or you're locked into your marriage, and you can't really move about. So that's really special. So what would you say? I'm going to move to your A Wild New Work, because I know that this is connected to tarot, but I just want everybody to understand what A Wild New Work is. It seems to be really rooted in nature and getting back to yourself with nature. Can you explain a bit more about A Wild New Work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now A Wild New Work is the name of my business, for lack of a better word. But it started as a program when I just started working for myself. So at the same time I was having this sort of spiritual renewal, I also started working for myself as an HR consultant, because I had been working in HR in Boston for a little while before that, and moved back to Portland and was working for myself and just started exploring what felt very natural, which is just the way that the rest of the world works, how the plants and animals and seasons work. And I just started incorporating that into my blog and sort of what I was thinking about in terms of just the contrast between nature and the modern workplace, which of course are not actually two separate things, but we treat them like they are. And so in 2016, I was going to start this program, just this 4-week class on soulful work and sort of how to explore other options for yourself. And this term, A Wild New Work, just sort of landed in my mind when I was trying to think of a good name for this program. And it's become so much bigger than that, and really is like a guidepost and kind of an aspiration for me in my work. So it essentially is sort of a calling into how we can be in better relationship with ourselves, with the planet, how to deconstruct some of the harmful tropes about work and capitalism, and how also how our ancestors worked and how work really wasn't separate from life or culture making. And so it's evolved over time, but it's kind of like the big container within which I do my work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's I went through your website, and I think it's something that I would need to experience in order to really understand, because I'm looking through it and I feel really, called to it because it's nature, and like you said, putting nature and work together as it originally was. And I think a lot of us are kind of ready to connect more to nature or back into nature. I think look at all of these, individual farms that are popping up. Look at all these rooftop farms that are popping up. People are just wanting to, get back into that. But so can you? I understand nature and work go together, but can you give us a little bit more of the examples of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of the things that I talk about and write about are the seasonal cycles and how, again, we're not separate from any of that. So if you are in your working life and let's say, you're feeling really dried out or uninspired, or like, that this isn't working, but you're not sure what else there could be for you. I would encourage you to take sort of a seasonal approach to that issue or that stickiness. So maybe, bring in the wisdom of the winter and like, what about that season resonates for you or could be happening? Maybe the winter is sort of your internal landscape right now and how you need to relate to work. And what do we do in the winter? We make sure we have enough carbs and starches. We feed ourselves. We sleep a lot. We start to see things differently. The world covered in snow looks a lot different than it did in the fall or the summer. We need different tools to navigate a place where things look really barren or like nothing's going to come back to life again. So I work with people one-on-one and in classes to really move through the seasons together and really embody them. I used to talk about it in terms of like, what can we learn from the season and implement that? But the more I work with it, the more I realize like we are the seasons already because we are nature and nature is us. So like, how am I already the spring and how can I sort of amplify that or align with that? And in the years that I've been walking the seasons, it has really changed my life. And I just, I think once we're attuned to it, we can see that like we really are already living these cycles. And especially with work, which can feel so linear and kind of one note, it can help us to dig into like some deeper inspiration or know when it's the right time to experiment or cross-pollinate and when it's the right time to just enjoy, the fruits of the summer. And so the seasons have become sort of the primary foundation. And the way that I bring that in is, through a podcast, through one-on-one work, through these tarot readings, I'm sure we'll talk about, my blog, so those are some of the like concrete ways that it gets lived out. But it's essentially just helping people remember that they are nature and that they move through these cycles just like the rest of the world does.
I love that. I think that's really special because you're right. There are a lot of people who work at jobs that are linear and can feel one note, but people like me who are chaotic and I am trying to catch everything as it's falling, and I can't really find when a season is because it feels like everything is either available right now or not available right now. It's sort of like I'm either in a complete dry spell or I'm in a wetland and now it's completely flooded and I don't know what to do. So it's really nice to have something kind of give me that pace. So, or give me that permission to have a pace. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't, if you're freelance or if you're, a magic person, Wiccan person, an artist of any kind, and that's also working with the neurodivergence of a lot of us, which is, we work because we're inspired like crazy and then we crash, for a long period of time. And I think that that's just not available for a lot of us because of capitalism, or because of the fact that everything costs so much money, period. Like, capitalism or not, it's just everything is a lot of money. So you have to keep going. You have to keep working. Everything is like kind of a survival mode, which also is kind of like nature. You know, I mean, nature, obviously it's all there for you, but still, like, animals are still, you know, working to survive, or living off of the land to survive. So that it does have that kind of quality. But at the same time, it's like, how do you find also that time that, you know, all of nature finds to rest as well? Like, that's something that's really, really difficult for me, is to take that time to rest. I'll take a nap. Like, I am a huge nap person. I'm like, I need 30 minutes, but it's because I need to reset so I can go work again. So it's not even just to take a rest. It's because I know I need to work for 12 hours today, and I'm not going to be able to do it if I don't nap for 30 minutes. So, I mean, do you work with people like that? Do you work with people who are just totally overworked or don't know how to stop working?
Definitely. Yeah. And I like to remember that, you know, that just like the planet is big enough to hold all kinds of seasons, you know, right now in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the fall, it's not spring. And like you alluded to, there are places where there's two seasons. It's the wet season and the dry season, and it can all happen. And even in one day, you know, maybe one project is definitely in its height and it's in the summer, and your body is in the winter and you've got to rest, you know. And so it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be all of these things. But yes, for the people that I've worked with who have a proclivity to that sort of all or nothing or immersion into the work, it is really helpful to just tune into what is happening around them, that regardless of the sort of internal state, if you can go outside and just put your feet on the ground or hear a bird or look at the sky, it will show you what to do, you know. It's very simple. It's not easy, but it can be that simple.
No, that's really important. I have a dog, and that's my I'm going outside right now. I have to walk my dog, and so I'm going to walk my dog 3 more blocks because I need to go outside. I need to take a trip, even if it's just a 15-minute trip, and just feel the breeze, look at the crescent moon, you know, hear the bugs, you know, chirping around, meet another dog, you know, and watch my dog enjoy meeting another dog. I mean, that's another thing is, I think that when we relinquish into nature, we are allowing ourselves to be a part of an ecosystem rather than being the center stage of everything, which is what human beings know how to do. We know how to, you know, make ourselves the focal point. And when we, you know, have animals, or we're connected to nature, or we're connected to gardening, or even houseplants, we are now a part of a system, and we are, you know, like in a coral reef, or, you know, in the forest, or we're not one anymore. We're a part of everything, and we have to work with everything, and we have to appreciate everything. And that's like when I take my dog out, you know, my dog sniffs everything. So sometimes I'm like, come on. And then I have to wait and say, you know, just take a step back and be like, you know what, this is your time. This is your 15 minutes. I've had all day to do all the things that I want to do, and this is your 15 minutes. So I'm going to not be the center stage. I'm not going to make my priority the biggest thing right now. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and I hope to see you next time. And as always, as above, so below, blessed be.